Ladies and gentlemen, this is Walter Smith with another in the series of Community Camera, brought to you by the Learning Resources staff at Corning Community College. We've, as I tape this program, we've just completed 3 very exciting days with our 6th and final visiting scholar in the College Visiting Scholar Series. It's been a real treat, and I'm happy to share our scholar with our television audience today as we welcome to the program our very distinguished and very welcome guest, R. Buckminster Fuller. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much.
How have you enjoyed your visit at Corning?
Very tremendously. Really tremendously, because I feel that the community itself and the college have seemingly understood much that I'm trying to convey to humanity now, which is that humanity really is in very enormous, we have enormous potential that we never had before, yet we're in greater peril than we've ever been before. That humanity is going through what I consider sort of a final examination as to whether it qualifies to continue in the universe. And I've found this Corning world apparently understand really pretty well what I'm saying, though I can nearly have the experience of the urgency of the known and going program that college does this and college does that sort of people saying I've got to get back to reality and tend to that. But I'm trying to make them understand that what they're engaged in, we consider reality of a school program is very unreal. And that we just have a few minutes to really make it on our planet, nothing to do with carrying on the old programs. They won't be there anymore if we don't do some things.
We've just undertaken the start of a new energy program on campus. We're just beginning the exploration of it. A twofold program, one for conservation of energy on campus, and the second part of it to establish an energy program, an academic program in energy management. And so maybe that's a hopeful sign.
That is, though I hadn't had that told to me before, there is no question about it that it's equally important for us to be finding how to use energy we already have, and that it's foreseeably available, as to try to find new sources. Because first I had an agreement with the operating manager for the New York Edison Company, who was a great naval officer and had been the nuclear physics right-hand man of Admiral Rickover. He agreed with me that of all the energy being consumed by humanity right now, we're only getting 5% effectively used, 95% being wasted. Let's think of it. And we know ways in which to then use the energy much more efficiently. This is really much more of a peril to us than the sources. The source are running out, of course. The fossil fuels were nature's savings account. Everybody knows you should not be living on savings accounts, so it's been completely wrong for us to be doing that anyway. Those who own the oil know that they're running out of oil, and they've then been assuming that they were going to make their money out of atomic energy. And the atomic energy is, we're now beginning to find that it has a lot of frailties about it. We just shut down 5 stations in New England a little before the Harrisburg trouble, because we found they were designed by nuclear physicists who said there's no earthquakes in New England, therefore they were not earthquake-proof. Obviously you should not design there's no such place as an earthquake-proof country. Low frequency, yes, but to have an atomic thing that could be shaken about, they really had to cut them down. Anyway, I found that the idea that we could go right over to atomic energy from giving up the oil has been a very fond hope of those who make money, because the people who make money out of energy have to have a meter between you and nature. The same people who make a great deal of money out of oil love getting a beautiful sailing yacht and getting wind for nothing to drive them around the world for racing yachts. But they don't understand how to get a meter between people and the wind, so they're not interested at all in wind power for humanity, which actually is quite adequate to take care of all human needs. We could be building wind power into electrical energy networks around the world, and it would be no trouble at all to take care of everybody.
It seems that we've spent a lot of our energy combating nature instead of working in a complementary way, haven't we?
Right, that's correct.
Some hold a great deal of hope for nuclear energy still, especially the fusion form, and say that will make electricity too cheap to meter. I don't know if that's...
Well, I have no use for fusion either. Fusion will have no radiation. It's theoretically possible, but it will be using up our oceans. And you say, well, our oceans are very deep. Oceans look deep to you and I because we're tiny. And so it's very much deeper than you and I overhead. But you and I consist 60% of water, and all the human beings do. All the biologicals in general, 50% water. Water freezes and boils within a very small limit, so if we went outside the biosphere, we'd immediately freeze or boil to death. Being actually structured in water, because we're hydraulic compression, distributing the loads, and hit myself, I hit you like that. It doesn't hurt you, fracture, break you like a china doll, because the liquids distribute the loads, yet they are non-compressible, so they hold their shape. Now, if you take a 3-foot diameter steel ball, polished, if we breathe on it, the condensation of our breath on that is less in depth, is greater in depth than the depth of our ocean in respect to our Earth. You get an idea how little water there really is in our planet. We don't know of any water anyplace else in the universe. If we were to use fusion, has a really great chance of chain reaction to actually burn up all that ocean. Fundamentally, everybody knows you ought to live on your energy income. You ought to live on your income, just use the word income. You're also not supposed to burn up your house, and using the atomic energy is burning up our ship. We're using the equipment which we're designed, and burning it up. We ought to live on our energy income. Our planet Earth is 200 million square miles in surface, total surface. 100 million squares always in the sun. The atmosphere about a mile deep, 10 miles deep, so we have 1 billion cubic miles of atmosphere always in the sun. The sun is enormously expanding that atmosphere, and the shadow side is contracting. This makes enormous pressure differential between the sunny side and the shadow side. This brings about all the thing we call winds, all of the weather on our planet. Those winds then are the first energy empowerment of sun radiation. Wind is sun power. Then that wind, which we're not using now, we were using our sailing ships, used to have a lot of windmills around too. That same wind then begins to blow the oceans. Every wave crashing on every beach all around the world is sun power. Nobody's doing anything about harnessing an enormous kind of power. I simply find then the vegetation completely impounds the sun radiation by photosynthesis. During World War II, the grand strategy against Hitler was to cut off his energy. They finally did cut off all his petroleum. Then the German scientists were put to work and taking the sun energy and the vegetation. They converted that vegetation into alcohols. They had 4 kinds of alcohols. From the alcohols, they made the synthetic rubber, which gave you 50,000 miles instead of 10,000 miles per entire. They also made out of that alcohol the high-octane gasoline. They made their foods. Hitler was not licked by energy loss, even though Germany is pretty small. The total area of Germany was quite adequate. Just a vegetation impoundment of sun to keep the economy going at the most extraordinary advance, able to cope with the war. And then our energy emergency right now is very culpable. The news, the administration, all people, nobody talks about what Germany did. The records were there, we had them. I was the Board of Economic Warfare. I find all my records have been stolen. This is how to get on. I said they didn't find any way to put meters between people and that sun. And if you can't put meters, you don't know how to make money. So nobody knows how to make money out of our emergency.
So you're saying that this is
it's a false situation.
Intentional delay in developing these other alternatives.
Very much so. I think highly culpable, and within a very short amount of time, humanity is really going to learn that itself. They're not going to put up with it anymore.
I think that one of the prices we pay of exhausting petroleum reserves, for example, is that not only are they limited and the power source will be gone, but we may have other more valuable uses for that petroleum other than burning it up if we keep some.
Obviously, nature's not going to be very pleased with using up her savings account in our planet, which we call petroleum or coal, in order to have a star. We now know of 2 billion galaxies, each of about 100 billion stars each. We got a lot of stars. All those stars are visible to us by virtue of the energy they're giving off. They're exporting energies. Where energy is being imported, getting ready to be a star, would give off nothing, so we can't see anything in the sky like that. But we happen to be present on a celestial body, which is called Earth. We gave the name Earth. And here we find sun radiation being impounded by the vegetation, by the algae, converted in most beautiful molecular structures, and being buried deeply against possibly 10 billion years from today to be a star. In other words, we are a nuclear, with the beginnings of a great star. Nature's not going to be very pleased with using up this capability. Humanity is operating in ways very contradictory to what the universe is doing in a great scheme. So the universe is not going to put up with our nonsense too long. I had a very great oil geologist named Francois de Chardin. Francois de Chardin lives in Denver, and he was one of those who discovered the large Alaskan oil fields. He also is the one who did discover the enormous gas fields of our mid-continent, which are soon to be exploited. Anyway, I asked Francois de Chardin if he were enough familiar as a geologist as well as being an oil geologist, could he write me a scenario of nature producing petroleum from the time when the sun radiation is impounded by the vegetation by photosynthesis? He said he could. He was a very busy man. After a year, he had all written out for me. I said, all right, Francois, this amount of time to do this amount of time to do all those things. At the rate you and I pay for power from the utility, kilowatt hours, what did it cost nature to produce 1 gallon of petroleum for that much energy, for that much time as heat and pressure? It came out way over $1 million a gallon. Now this is, nature is all of the great galaxies, everything, all the great transformations of energy. The universe is being run on an energy basis and an energy time basis. So I'm simply trying to get a calculation. Anyway, it costs nature $1 million a gallon, and we say we put down a pipe, it's for nothing. We're absolutely kidding ourselves. And so I want to get at the fact that we have all kinds of jobs. For instance, we have 70% of the jobs in America not produce any life support, but they're part of it. You have to earn a living game, so we have the politics and so forth. We're building up jobs of reinsurance or insurance where we exploit people's fear. And we find then people using 3 and 4 gallons to go to work each day, spending $3 or $4 million of nature's savings account a day to produce no wealth. Now, again, nature is not going to put up with this kind of nonsense. Let's let me like that pretty clear. And then I come back to the days when Hahn and Stressmann in Germany in 1936 discovered theoretical fusion. They also became aware that the other scientists were being employed by Hitler trying to work towards an atomic bomb. The Jewish scientists got to America and were able then to tell other scientists here about this. They studied and they showed enough theoretical fusion. They realized then that you could really get energy out of matter, which man had talked about, but always thought it was sort of a dream. They said only Einstein could possibly convince Franklin Roosevelt that the Germans were really working on such a thing. So Einstein did convince him. As of that very day, as he was being told, Franklin Roosevelt appropriated $80 billion for the Manhattan Project. Afterwards, the United States put in another $70 billion. That was before we had the devaluation of our dollar. And it bring you to 150 billion. Multiply 150 billion by 6 and you get what it would cost us today. otherwise this gets pretty close to $1 trillion, put out by the United States. During this time, we have a man who was called Mr. Straws, a banker in New York, Cumulove, got a job with the government called, made him Admiral Straws. He'd never been in rowboat. Then they made him then head of the Atomic Energy Commission. And he and those who were backed Mr. Eisenhower, General Eisenhower for president, were able to convince the president that America really was fundamentally private enterprise. This is not in our Declaration of Independence, nothing we call it to say we're, but anyway, he made the president assume that we're really just fundamentally big business, and we're a profit system versus the communists who are having socialism. So gradually they were able to get the president to see that the big corporations handle the atomic things. We got to find a point where all the $1 trillion paid for by America now belongs to all the big corporations. It belongs to all the people saying own the oil company. So they knew they were exhausting their oil, and this is then going to be the way they made their money, because they had all these meters. So there's a stream of money making. All this has to do with money making, nothing to do with humanity surviving on our planet, nothing to do with our children of tomorrow and the great-grandchildren. And I'm really shocked by it because I now have it absolutely clear. There's a book we have called Earth, Energy, and Everyone. It'll be coming out with Doubleday in August of this year. We first was published by, the first printing was exhausted 3 years ago, but it makes it eminently clear with the proven energy sources. I'm talking about methane gases, waterfalls, thermal power, wind powers, but all proven technologies. It's highly feasible to live entirely on our energy income. But I say, big business sees no way to get meters between people and the energy income, therefore nothing is really done on the big high places about what we're talking about.
But now that's the one problem that I've heard you discuss while you've been here, the fact that any basic change of our energy producing and consumption pattern would threaten the economic interchanges involved. But you touched on something else this afternoon that interested me, and that deals with a mental set of many of our students, which is often anti-technology, because they have seen some of the apparently exploitive sides of technology, that they frequently are anti-technology. That's going to have to be overcome too, isn't it?
No question about it. We continually hear the technology being blamed, or that technology is going to take over humanity. The universe is nothing but technology, and I can take technology, say something beautiful like this, and I can write a prescription to save your life, or I can be so stupid as to use it as a dagger to kill you. If we are misusing our technology, this is not to be blamed on technology. I found that the young world is going to have to really learn that, or those who are mistaken. But the reason is that 99% of humanity, actually that large, don't understand technology. There are over 40 million engineers and scientists on our planet. That sounds like a lot. That's only 1% of the 4 billion humans. That 1% then doesn't understand that they are the scientists, but the 99% don't understand science because they can't understand the mathematics of science. It seems absolutely indigestible to them. Therefore, they don't know that all the science has ever found out is the universe is nothing but technology. The 99% who yesterday were illiterate and now literate think of the word technology as a new word. They think something just come in the last century. They equate it primarily with weapons or machines to compete with for their jobs, so they think, I'm against it. The fact is that if we use our technology properly, and we're really not saying how do you make money out of it, but how do you make sense with it, how do you take care of humanity, we could really have there's now available and clearly demonstrable an engineering reorganization of the production capability of humanity. Within 10 years, we could have all humanity living at the highest standard of living anybody's ever known, while phasing out in 10 years, that same 10 years, all further use of fossil fuels, living entirely on our energy income. So humanity didn't know it had that option. It didn't know it's going to have a computer. It didn't know it's going to have an alloy. It didn't know it's going to have that electron. But now the sum total of all the things we now have and know about, and the capability to do so much more with so much less, that we really can fly and take over even virtual, makes it possible for us to take care of everybody. So this could only be realized by a design revolution, technology revolution, and humanity is against it. So I then said, how do you solve that one? Because I find the big power structures, big government, big politics, big business, big religion, would find it absolutely devastating to their activity to have humanity success. They're all predicated on humanity being in a lot of trouble. Come to my party, oh man, I get you a job, you know. Or come over here and I'll come with you and get you in heaven. Anyway, we say then, with the big going, what might call the system, against its own salvation, then the only way we can really get that 99% to understand is to realize that, fortunately, the mathematics being used by science is not nature's coordinate system. It's something they feel it can be done only, really expressed primarily in equations, cannot be done in models. I now find that nature is not using the coordinate, the XYZ coordinate system of nature used by science. It's not using it. It's using what I'll call not perpendicular parallel, but a convergent divergence, the way things can grow. It's radiation going outwardly, gravitation going inwardly, not perpendicular parallel. We find that the coordinate system that nature is using mathematically is completely comprehensible by the 99% who don't understand the equations of science. So there's going to be a revolution educationally in what nature's coordinate system is, by virtue of which then suddenly humanity can really enjoy and be enthusiastic about the technology that the universe really uses, and really can realize it can be used to exercise an option to make it on the planet.
Well, you do something that I think we educators have not done very well, and I think that's a large part of the appeal that you had with your audiences here, and that is bridging that gap between humanity and technology, and showing that there shouldn't be the kind of dichotomy or the kind of opposing mental sets. In education, we discuss it in terms of a dichotomy between the humanities and the technologies, without showing the kind of interlocking dependence that you seem to, that's the center of so much of what you discuss.
Now, the kind of things I've just been saying to you, I'm quite convinced you can't do any good thinking if you have good and bad people. When the second thing I did about business, I'm really not talking about bad people. I'm talking about a humanity which had been absolutely convinced historically that there's nowhere nearly enough of life support to go around, therefore find themselves forced to be you or me. And not really liking the game, but I've got my family dependent on me, I got my people, so it's got to be you or me. And that's why we have all these wars all this time. Why the United States and Russia for the last 30 years have spent over $200 billion a year to buy the highest capability of science and focus on how to destroy most expertly, the greater and greater distance, faster and faster, more wholesale. About $6 trillion has been spent on that. This is not because these were bad people at all, but because these human beings were convinced it had to be you and me. There's not enough of both. So I find society has been laboring under a great deal of misapprehension. Thomas Malthus was the first to actually say that. We had the first time after Magellan we were on a sphere. At this time we thought we were on a flat world. Flat world went to infinity. But Thomas Malthus, the professor of political economics at East India Company College, and he was the first actual economic servant, received the total vital statistics from around a spherical closed system Earth. He said that's all there is anymore. And he found and published in 1810, quite clearly humanity is multiplying itself at a geometrical rate, producing life support only at an arithmetical rate. Therefore, majority of humanity was designed to be failure. That's why you had to earn the living, you had to get in on the life support to satisfaction those who were in power. Anyway, that is still the working assumption of the 99%. So I can understand these people say, my family, I know my family, they're really darling, they love God, and I think God probably thinks so more of them. I'm warranted in depriving your family to my family get on. This is what's going on here. So these are not good or bad people. They're misinformed people, sir.
They're misinformed, and again, not seeing the connection. It seems to me a lot of the technologists try to find solutions without the human coefficient figured in, but on the other hand, a lot of the humanists think that the problems can be solved without the technology, and they're both wrong, aren't they?
Yeah, they're both wrong. But anyway, I've said some very severe things in a sense about big business.
Yeah.
I want to say I don't see any good or bad people there. I feel these people are people are saying I'm having to behave. My lawyer told me this, and that's what I got to do. They're beautiful human beings. They're very loving human beings, time and again. But please, I would like to end my audience listening to me, because I'm being pretty critical. But I want to be able to tell what the whole truth is about, that we do now have the option to make it. We didn't know it before. If I hadn't been in the environmental control game of developing geodesic domes, I have 200,000 geodesic domes around the world. They're the most difficult places to live. One over the exact south pole of our planet. The one on top of Mount Fuji. They're ringing the Arctic. They're the equator. There are all kinds of places where it's very difficult to have any kind of environmental control. I really know what I'm talking about. I know I am a sailor. I've been a ship's captain. I'm a regular United States line officer. I've been a pilot. I don't tell people I can get on the other side and not know what I'm talking about. So when I really say to you, I now know clearly demonstrable, engineering-wise, with enormous advance in doing more with less, increasing the tensile strength, etc. It is now highly feasible to take care of all humanity. I now know this. This was not known before. Doesn't make me Mr. Big, but I happen to be positioned to be the first to witness the inventory and to have the technical experience to realize the significance of what's happened. So here is this extraordinary moment. We now have the option to make it. You don't have to earn a living anymore. It does not have to be you and me. It does not have to be war. Just think what I'm saying. We can realize that extraordinary option and begin to get on. Nothing else in the universe has to earn a living. Hydrogen atom doesn't have to earn a living before it behaves like an hydrogen atom. We're here for our beautiful minds, but we're letting muscle and cunning and selfishness and fear are still running things through this man. So I'm hoping to dispel the fear. I'm hoping only by really saying what is the truth, that we really do have the option to make it, and we do find out. I've got to talk about what are the obstacles of being realized, and they are due to the ignorance, and not because these are not good or bad human beings. I want to be sure. I really love human beings all right across the board, and other people considered very big businessmen. I know them and know them intimately. Beautiful people.
Well, that's one thing that has come through very clearly in your visit, I think, and I can appreciate why you wanted to clarify that, because I know in everything you've said, you've indicated how you hope that the proper use of technology can lead us to some of those goals you were just talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that I think you've had, perhaps in this brief exposure, you've had a chance to get a very small glimpse of the riches that we have been enjoying on the college campus, and I hope you in the community have also been participating. My guest has been our Buckminster Fuller, and I thank you, sir, very much for coming on Community Camera. And I hope that all of you in the audience will continue to look forward to the next academic year's list of visiting scholars. Thank you again, and it's been a wonderful experience, and I know that no one who has heard you here does not share the hope of getting you back again someday. Thank you all for looking in.
This is